So Fox Sports' Joel Klatt had another ridiculous take this week on the Georgia Bulldogs. I say another ridiculous take because I'm sure he's had others in the past, but this one is terrible for a lot of reasons. This is something that a bozo would say, okay? And I know it's the offseason. This is where we have our generally stupid hot takes of the season, right? But this week, I guess he came out with the toughest environments in college football. And this guy forgot to put Sanford Stadium on his list. And I know he forgot because in 2024, there's no way you could say that there are 5 other better environments or tougher environments to play in than Georgia Sanford Stadium. You can't say that. It's so ridiculous on so many levels, and I'm going to break that down in this video. But first, let's go over his list. At number 5, he's got Clemson, which I kind of agree with. That's not a hot take at all. That is a great place. It is loud. That's a tough environment to play in. They did lose at home last year to Florida State in overtime, a good Florida State team. And 2 years ago, 2022, they lost to South Carolina, their biggest rival, at home, gave up 31 points. That's a tough place to play, but in no world is any college football team saying right now, we'd rather play in Sanford Stadium against the Dogs than Memorial Stadium, the mini Death Valley, whatever they're calling it over there. It's loud. It's loud. No one would rather play in Sanford Stadium than there, though. It's ridiculous to say that's a tougher environment than Georgia right now. Number 4, he's got Oregon. He said it's the most underrated home field advantage, which is ridiculous because everyone talks about how loud Oregon is and how tough it is. They don't lose a lot of games there. I get it. They have 1 home loss since 2019, which is Georgia's only loss. Real quick, let's talk about what Georgia's been able to do because we're at the 2-minute mark. I haven't even talked about how dominant the Dogs have been. They only have 1 loss since 2019, and that was to a South Carolina team, and it wasn't because the environment wasn't tough. The fans could have been better in that game. And real quick, when Georgia fans need to be loud, they bring it. They are as loud as anyone out there when they need to be. Could it be more consistent? Yeah. And I'm not saying that Georgia should be number 1 on this list, but for them to not even make a top 5 list of toughest environments, it just shows how little this Joel Klatt kid has, what little he knows not only about the Georgia Bulldogs and Sanford Stadium, but what they've been able to accomplish. If you just look at the numbers, again, they've only lost 1 home game in several years since, it was 2019. They haven't lost at home since. And that was a game they should have won. It wasn't because of the lack of crowd noise. It was because Jake Fromm and Tyler Simmons and Rodrigo Blankenship just didn't play. They didn't show up. But you talk about the false start penalties. Notre Dame doesn't want any part of Sanford Stadium. Neither does Arkansas or Kentucky or Tennessee. They just crushed the number 1 team in the country in Sanford Stadium, in their house, in Georgia's house. They accepted the number 1 team and they throttled them. No one comes to Athens and plays well. Some teams will give Georgia a fight. They had a fight with South Carolina last year. Missouri gave them a fight too, but it's tougher to win right now in Athens, Georgia than anywhere else in the country. I firmly believe that. A lot of it is because Georgia's really good and they bring a good defense, but it is so tough I've seen it time and time again how tough it is for teams to be on the same page cohesively and offensively and schematically and be able to perform at a high level efficiently on a 3rd and long, 3rd and medium, game on the line, whatever. And the crowd is absolutely rocking. It is so tough. Going back to this list, he's got Alabama at number 3. I think the Alabama fan base, like Georgia's, can be loud at times when they need them to. But again, they lost to Texas at home last year, gave up 34 points. And I'm not going to hold their 2019 loss to LSU against them. That was the best offense in college football history. But they're not unbeatable at home. And yeah, that's 100,000 people. They're used to winning. They can be loud. I don't think it's as consistent. And Georgia's consistency needs to improve also. Sanford Stadium was fine. It was average against Missouri last year. That was one of the biggest games of the season, but it's Missouri. When Notre Dame comes to town, when number 1 Tennessee comes to town, when Auburn usually comes to town, and the big games in Athens, top 10 opponents, top 15 games, top 25 matchups, the crowd brings it. Normally, it's hard for them to occasionally get up for Missouri and South Carolina and Kentucky and Vanderbilt, whatever. But again, big games, it's tougher to find a better environment than Georgia's. A toughest environment to play in. That's what this list is. So Alabama, probably top 5. I get it. But okay. Penn State at number 2, specifically the whiteout. And this was my favorite part of Joel Klatt's weirdo video. He said, the whiteout environment in a big game, they're really tough to beat. There's only one thing that beats it, and that's LSU at night. I get LSU at night. I get why that's number 1. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But Penn State's not very good in the whiteout games. If we're talking numbers, Penn State's record in whiteout games is 10-8 overall. They've won their last 3 whiteout games, defeating Michigan in 2019, a forgettable Michigan team, a completely forgettable Auburn team in 2021, and Minnesota, the Gophers. I don't know what kind of accent that was. It was trying to be Minnesotan, but I'm from the South. I can't even do a Minnesota accent. But that's your whiteout game, the Gophers. You're going to count that as a whiteout game in 2022? Are you kidding me? I mean, last year they beat an Iowa team that couldn't score. They couldn't score at all against anybody. They'd have a tough time scoring against the Milton Eagle defense down the road. So if that was their whiteout game against a team that can't score, then they beat number 22 Auburn in 21 in their whiteout game. I hope you could beat a completely average Auburn team at home. Congrats. They've lost to Ohio State 3 times in the whiteout game. Don't tell me that's a tough environment to play in. I'm not buying it. I know it looks cool. I know it's 100,000 people. I'm sure it gets loud. Don't tell me it's a top 2 environment to play in when you're 10-8. You're 10-8 in the whiteout games. Give me a break. It's one of the most overrated traditions that people think is fantastic. Oh, you can't beat Penn State in the whiteout game. It's great. It looks awesome. And you get the goosebumps. And I love watching the video of it for 25 seconds, 30 seconds that they play every year when the crowd's jumping. It's cool. I get it. Don't mix that up with toughest environments to play in, because it's obviously not. They're not going to be playing Ohio State in any whiteout games in the future. They're going to be playing Minnesota and Illinois and Indiana, and occasionally an average Auburn team comes up. You know, it's just ridiculous. LSU at number 1 at night. Yeah, that's wild. Georgia played there, got drilled in 2018. The place was rocking. Place was wild. And a lot of that was because Georgia was in town, and we get that. You know, Georgia usually gets everyone's best shot, especially when they're on the road. Every time Georgia plays on the road in a true road environment, because Georgia fans oftentimes take over the opposing field. They have no problem going to Neyland. They just crushed Tennessee there. It's basically Sanford Stadium North, but Auburn's a tough place to play. LSU, you can feel that different environment, that different energy. I think Auburn has what am I trying to say? An argument for being a top 5 tough environment. That can be a really tough place to play. LSU was crazy loud. That was a 3:30 game that it kind of went into the night, into the fourth quarter. It wasn't a true night game in Baton Rouge, but it was 3:30 and it was still loud. It was crazy, especially when they started making big plays and interceptions and start taking the lead and adding on to the lead. Place was going nuts. I mean, it was a 5-star environment. I get why LSU's number 1, but Georgia can make the case as the toughest environment to play in. They're not even, some games at home are close, but most of them, top 10 Kentucky, top 10 Auburn, top 10 Ole Miss. I know those aren't brand names, but we've seen really good teams that are playing really well come to Athens and get throttled, and the game's over at the half. And the crowd does make a big difference in those big games. Against Tennessee 2 years ago, absolutely. The crowd was in Hendon Hooker's head. It was in the Tennessee team's head. They could not win they could have brought their A game, their A+ game to Athens. They weren't winning that game, and the crowd was a big reason why. It had them jumbled. It had Notre Dame with 6, 7 false starts. You can tell that these teams aren't ready for that type of noise level when they come to Athens. And I know it's not normally looked at as a crazy loud environment, but it has turned into that over time. I should have mentioned this a few minutes ago. College bronze, get yourself one of these statues. It's the best on the market right now. You can get yours with a discount. Promo code DOGPOST in the link below. It's all in the description. You can get a discount. It's great for Father's Day, graduation. We love it. You gotta let your neighbors know that you pull for the dogs. The flags are old news. The 5-star Georgia fans have this 5-star product on their front porch. They love it. Get yours today. Promo code DOGPOST. Everything's in the link down below. What do you think? Georgia's absolutely one of the toughest environments to play in college football. Did this guy leave Georgia out on purpose, or did he forget? I don't know. But it's ridiculous to say that playing in Sanford Stadium is not one of the hardest things to do in all of college football right now. That's my take. What's yours? I want to see it in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the website.